Hey, 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 welcome to Learn Biz, the podcast. I am one half of the show. I'm Lisa Kay. So glad to be here with you on Juneteenth. Yes, and we have also the lovely Sandy B. Law. How are you, Sandy?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, guys. Good morning.
So we're here broadcasting because we want to talk about Juneteenth. First of all, to say happy Juneteenth to those who celebrate this federal holiday. Yes, yes. And there's so many things to think about and to reflect upon, and so many questions to ask, right, Sandy?
So many questions, but before we get into questions, let's get into the holiday spirit. All right. All right. So
That helps. That
we're
definitely helps. Sets the mood a little bit, right?
we're
Just a
gonna
little
celebrate
bit.
Juneteenth proper, right? Hey, okay. So we got a lot of little stuff to chat about. Lisa and I are always getting into our heads about all kinds of different topics, and we share our ideas. And we're like, you know what? We sitting here talking to each other. We need to talk to the people because we always going live and talking about some different issues. And it's like, what better issue to talk about today than Juneteenth, our
Right?
newly recognized holiday that many don't really know much about. Many have a surface thought about, and sometimes people are like, what's Juneteenth? What does that mean? We have 4th of July. Well, it's a different holiday, folks. Um, so let's get into the backdrop of Juneteenth, because I know that many times we don't really understand the history of this holiday and why it has an impact on us today. Like, Lisa, have you ever really learned much about Juneteenth growing up, or?
No, just like that came late. Juneteenth came late for folks. The information and knowledge about Juneteenth came very, very late as well.
All right, so let's just look at a little bit. This is from the Smithsonian Museum, the National African American, History Museum, and they kind of laid out a little bit on their website. So you can go to nmaahc.si.edu, and it gives you a little breakdown of this Juneteenth holiday. But of course, not without some pictorial history, right? Giving us a little bit of imagery. But this is Emancipation Day celebration, June 19th, 1900, held in Eastwoods on East 24th Street in Austin, which is in Texas. So as you can see, the folks are prim and proper. They're not wearing the Juneteenth T-shirt like I am over here. They're wearing some prim and proper, right? Because they're celebrating the emancipation of the final batch, right? So it says on Freedom's Eve, oh, sorry, I'm scrolling too fast. On Freedom's Eve, or the eve of January 1st, 1863, the first watch night services took place. On that night, enslaved and free African Americans gathered in churches and private homes across the country, awaiting news that the Emancipation Proclamation had taken effect. Now, this was the first sign of freedom, right? This was the first opportunity that slaves were to be freed. However, it says, but not everyone in Confederate territory would immediately be free. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation was made effective in 1863, it could not be implemented in places still under Confederate control. So, as a result, in the westernmost Confederate state of Texas, enslaved people would not be free until much later, which finally came June 19th, 1865, when some 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas. Wow. 1863 to 1865. It took 2 more years almost for folks to be deemed free. Man, this
That's
is
a
a
long
scary thought.
time. Wow. Can you imagine that someone is still basically saying that you're not human, you have no human rights, that you have to get up at the crack of dawn and work? Oh my God. Just the whole horror of slavery. And then you waiting 2 years longer than you have to get out of that situation. Oh goodness.
And to still continue in conditions that we all know, this didn't really mean that people were totally free. Obviously, the systemic issues maintained as they do today. While we, of course, enjoy many greater freedoms than our ancestors, obviously, we're still in a position where there are a lot of issues in our society that, as I said, Lisa and I talk about these issues all the time, and we debate over the nature of certain situations in our society today. But what better time to chat about this than today on Juneteenth? um
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about when people say Happy Juneteenth, I mean, what are we basically saying? That's the question I want to throw out. What are we basically saying Happy Juneteenth about?
I mean, thinking about the big picture, we're definitely acknowledging that this is the Independence Day for us and our ancestors. This is the day that we truly can say that we're celebrating the nation, and we're celebrating the fact that we are acknowledged for who we should already have been, right? Um, Now, it's symbolic in nature, but for many nowadays, they're considering Juneteenth as their, 4th of July per se, right? Because 4th of July is supposed to be Independence Day. Um, but when you are not deemed to be free, how can you truly celebrate Independence Day on the day that, the nation that has enslaved you is considering the Independence Day? Shout out to Rigo. Good morning, Rigo.
Rigoberto Morales in the house.
You
Thank
know,
you, Rigoberto, for supporting us as always. Sandy, I just want to know, are we free, or are we just free? I mean, because I think if you free, if you, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, are we free?
I'm gonna tell you what my T-shirt says. A little phrasing on it, and it says "freeish." It says "freeish," so it doesn't say "free." My shirt says "freeish," and as I'm looking at it, it says "freeish" since 18. So I think that there are aspects of freedom that we enjoy. I think there are aspects of opportunity and experiences that we enjoy, but I also think that there are a lot of issues that have systematically been put in place that create restraints. So for sure, shout out to Nate. We are free-ish, free-ish, as my shirt says, since 1865. But there's something that Lisa and I have talked about, and I like what Nate is saying here most of the time. There's something that Lisa and I talk about all the time, and it's like it's a debate because yes, we have systematic issues, but are we in a position today in 2023 where we have the restrictions that prevent us from excelling, increasing, being prosperous, being productive, um, being entrepreneurs, attaining levels in our career? Are we in that position? I think that's the question that I have
Wow.
today.
And that's a very good question because that really is the beginning of the thought process of where do we go from here. And
Right.
one thing I really like about Nate, and he's a real estate broker, of course, but look at the name of his company. The name of his brokerage is Black Luxury Realty. Think about that. At this time and space that we're living in, he has a Black luxury realty brokerage because there is an audience that he can now cater to. That is that shows how far we've come, right? That there is an audience that he caters to, that at one point, that if you were someone who wants to purchase luxury real estate, there's only so many brokerages that you can go to, and none of them potentially look like you, the person who's shopping for luxury real estate.
Right.
We're moving as Black entrepreneurs, we're moving into spaces at this time that we haven't been able to be in what seemed like forever.
I mean, you and I can both attest to this. We have both spent a sizable amount of our professional careers as entrepreneurs. We have spent a sizable amount of time being able to say that we employ ourselves and that we are able to take advantage of certain opportunities. But even with that context in mind, we've also talked about some obstacles that we faced,
Yeah.
obstacles securing capital, obstacles having the necessary capital to scale the business, obstacles to being able to sustain the business, right? Having to kind of dilly dally and do different things so that we can accomplish certain levels. Obstacles in trying to maintain the type of business that we want, right? A lot of times we talk about how sometimes we have to take certain cases that maybe wouldn't really be on our roster if we had ample resources, right? We take on certain cases and causes. We oftentimes second guess ourselves, undercut ourselves in pricing because we think that that's the avenue for us to kind of do a draw. But in reality, we're, suffering from, the institutional issues and not recognizing our worth in many ways, right?
You really said it, the institutional issues. What are the institutional issues that we face today? Well, I can tell you a huge one, and that is that institutionally we have been banned from getting loans to purchase homes, loans to invest in our businesses, different things that we need to get a leg up. We have been institutionally turned down. And that um, definitely creates the economic lag between the cultures, right? Without that same access to being able to get loans to go out and purchase land and to purchase homes, and then to have an opportunity to build um, your own businesses, like Sandy B's law practice next door to a black brokerage next door to a black chiropractic office, to be able to create those legacies in America. I mean, what we've seen historically is that when we get started doing things like that, that some folks get jealous and come and burn it down.
I mean, one of the main problems that I see is this conversation of equality versus equity, right? Equality would be all things being equal, all of us being at the same playing field. But that means all things would need to be, in a sense, equal. Equity, on the other hand, is balancing that playing field to ensure that even if all things are not equal, that there are supports that are put in place to allow us to be working at the same playing field and level.
Yes.
We're not there. Now, it's not to say that there are no opportunities, because one thing I will not say is that there aren't opportunities. There are.
True. There
and
are.
I think what it is, it impresses upon us to really tap into our resources, tap into our networks, and take things at another level. Because many times we endeavor to do things and we don't think about how the little small things can matter in that big picture, right? I look at some small businesses now. I tell the story of Jazz in the Gardens. I went to Jazz in the Gardens. I was thinking about certain factors in terms of the vendors at Jazz in the Gardens. And I was like, there are certain vendors, because of the environment, you have thousands of people coming there to get something from you. And many of them were not equipped with certain basic things. It was like some of them were still trying to deal with, regular old things and not thinking to themselves, well, I could probably use some technology. Right? If I have folks that are waiting in line for some food, well, maybe there's an app or a process or a system that I can employ so people aren't missing the show and instead are having an opportunity to grab their food when their food is ready instead of standing in line for an hour.
I like that.
You know what I'm
saying? Yeah.
Or even
what I'm saying.
Mom and pop businesses not utilizing certain technology that's available and at hand because they don't want to feel certain things. It's like, well, we don't take cards unless you pay an extra fee. Well, there may be ways that you can streamline your costs and expenses so that the fees would be infused and so that you're not feeling that hit. Instead, you're taking advantage of the opportunity to get more business.
Exactly. We have to think smarter and not just work harder. You're telling the truth. And then the other thing, so I said that, we've taken a huge hit historically in this country since the end of slavery by not being able to get resources.
Yeah.
resources for housing, resources to start businesses, what have you, to invest. So
Right.
that right there has been devastating. And then I think, the whole educational piece, a lot of Black people went right to school, started getting, degrees and learning. I mean, we were shut out. And just think, it was a crime to read and write. It was a crime. You could lose your life for learning how to read and write while you were a slave. So this is American history right here.
Yeah.
So like you said, there are resources that are out there that can get us to where we want to be, obviously, get us into these spaces. This show is not about excuses, but it is about where do we go from here.
Absolute. And, we can internalize this and think about our own personal experiences in all this process. I think about whenever I have a holiday, I remind myself that I have to take that day to reflect on what I'm doing in my business, what I'm doing personally, how can I make some adjustments? Because a lot of times, we are prone to this all work, no play, grinding, hustling, all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, you can grind, but grinding means breaking down. Grinding is not effective. Now you can strategize, that's more effective. You can, plot out a map for yourself, you can plan, you can organize your thoughts, but that involves periods of rest. Mental health is an important piece in this. A lot of the times when we think about these holidays, we neglect to think about the backdrop of the holiday. The turmoil, the pain, the anguish, the frustrations that people deal with, the microaggressions that we deal with in the workplace. You and I, Lisa, talk all the time about how in the legal profession, we're treated a certain way by clients, by the profession in general, right? We're treated a certain way, but we look at some of our colleagues and they don't get treated that way. It's like, I'll notice that even our own clients won't talk to our counterparts in a certain way. They'll give them a certain level of respect because they look to them as, this person's an attorney, so they deserve a certain level of respect.
They
But with
make a
us,
lot of assumptions that the person must know what they're doing because they obviously have a degree, they've been
yeah,
to school, they have a license, and they get that modicum of respect. And sometimes people in their own cultures don't show that respect to each other. And
yeah,
that's unfortunate that we have to raise the level of respect that we have for one another, and recognizing the hard work that we've had to put in to get wherever we are, and that respect right there will carry us a long way. And what I was going to say, just to piggyback off what you're saying, Sandy, if someone told me that, just because you have black and brown skin, obviously doesn't mean that everyone in that group or population are going to have the same values and want
yeah.
to prioritize the same things. So the question becomes, what commonality can we begin to identify with so that we can move more progressively and more unified? Because being a minority in numbers, we have to think about how do we maximize our strength as a group, and we need to find out what commonality we will all stand behind, like everybody's bound to stand behind this. I think that's how we begin to build some legacy stuff from where we are.
Shout out to Joy Crawford. Thank you for tuning in with us. She said, great dialogue, beautiful ladies. We appreciate you, Miss Joy Crawford. Thank you for
Thank
tuning in.
you.
Guys,
By the way, she's an entrepreneur as well. So she has a social media site that has thousands of grandmothers,
okay.
and she markets these beautiful grandmothers in her publication and an annual celebration. So shout out to Joy Crawford. You guys go and find her. I believe this site is what my grandkids called me, if I have that right. If not, Joy, please post the name of the site.
Yes.
But she's phenomenal, and she's a senior that is really showing what can be done using social media.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Joy. We appreciate you tuning in with us. So guys, today we're celebrating Juneteenth. we're taking some time to do some reflection and some consideration, but we got to take it all in the spirit. So you already know it's always a joy for us to celebrate today.
And you know what? Why do we love music so much? Why do we just love music so much?
I can't do it, Lisa. So, we have to do the little music breaks to kind of cut into the conversation. But, I'm going to tell you something. When I talk about holidays and the reflections, I spend a lot of time kind of thinking, right? And trying to analyze, why I'm in a certain position, why my community is in a certain position, why in the era that we're in 2023, we're in the age of artificial intelligence. We're in the age of there is everything that you can think of at your fingertips. Like right now, many of you may be watching us from your cell phone. You may catch the replay from your cell phone. You don't have to get on your computer. You don't have to go to a screen. You don't have to do anything else. So we're in that age of when we can get access to information. It's instantaneous.
Right. Some people may be watching us from their watch, right? From their watch right now. Just
I don't know about that watch. You got advancements.
Watching us from the watch.
Oh man, like we're in that age, and we're in such an age that recently I was attending some meetings for my section of the bar, and they started talking about concerns about artificial intelligence and how it is impacting the legal profession and how it could positively but also negatively impact the profession. And I just kept sitting, I was thinking this morning as I got up, I was like, all right, today is my day of reflection. Today is my day off. There's no calls, there's no emails, there's none of that. There is, what am I doing business wise? How can I incorporate all kinds of resources and things, but also what have I done in the past that I need to improve upon? I think about processes and services and the things that I've done. And I'm like, when I think of Juneteenth and where do we go from here? I think about, we need to make sure that technology is at our disposal. It's not just there for our entertainment. It is there for our disposal, and it allows us to be able to move along through certain processes. Because one of the struggles that I've had in the practice of law that's been really, really difficult is developing boundaries and knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes, understanding that, I'm not a puppet to the system or my clients or my colleagues. I'm an individual with a voice. I'm going to do some good things. I'm going to do some bad things. I'm going to try to, do some things better. But at all levels, I have to be whole. My community has to be whole. My family has to be whole in order for me to do all of this stuff. So to be able to do that, we need to incorporate things that are necessary. Technology is necessary right now. You can't avoid it. Now, you can push away negatives. Like today, I was going through some of my YouTube stuff, and I was like dismissing things that I don't want to see in my feed. And I do the same thing on my Instagram, my Facebook, dismissing things that I don't want to fill up my feed with the toxicity, because our purpose is too great for us to be wasting too much time on nonsense. We can enjoy the entertainment, but when do you take a time to say, all right, this is my time to focus on the collective things that I need to work on, the individual things that I need to work on? That's what I feel like. Where do we go from here? We have to be more intentional about the collective economics. We have to be more intentional about the collective networking. We have to be more focused on the collective use of resources and connecting our networks with the necessary resources. Because we know we have friends and family that are at a loss for certain things. It's our job to support that move. Yes. And that's my 2 cents. Let me get off my soapbox.
I love it. Thank you for your soapbox. That's exactly what the whole collective piece is, I think, what we're missing right now. So our ancestors struggled through 400 years of slavery, right? Or 235 years of slavery, over 200 years. And, in this country, they stuck together because they knew that one day we would be here. And they took the abuse that they took because they knew the abuse. Sandy, can you find out exactly how long we were, the exact time of slave was um I just want to get the exact number of years. I know when it ended. Now it was 1863. So if I take what 1609, wait, is it 1609? Is it 1609 from 1863? Somebody help me.
1776 until 1865.
Wait, weren't we, didn't we come here with them when they came to Jamestown? We were already here, right? We were coming with them, right? We came here with them as slaves, I believe.
This is when we know our history is flawed, when we can't even come up with this.
Well, you know what? Nobody didn't teach me this when I was elementary school, Sandy. Nobody didn't teach me no stuff like this. Hold on for a second.
You know, this is going to be my next YouTube short, with you telling me, Sandy's sitting there with her mouth open, just not knowing nothing.
Hold on. When did slavery start? I just want to be exact about it. It does say 1619.
Oh, 1619.
Yeah, I said 1609, so I was wrong. I was off just a little bit by about a
in the
decade.
United States?
This is many consider a significant starting point to slavery in America, because you know it was going on in the 1500s.
Gotcha.
In other parts of the world, and the Arabs were involved in the slave trade too, so they were significant. The Portuguese, they had their piece in it. So some of these other different folks around the country, they all had their little piece in it, but the Americans' significant involvement came in 1619. Like the White Lion brought 20 enslaved Africans ashore when they got here in 1619. But the Atlantic slave trade is said to have started somewhere from like the mid 1500s, like 1526 even. So, and it was like total, the numbers, some of the numbers that are put out, like 12.5 million captured men, women, and children were put on ships.
So, needless to say, we're not far out from these time frames that we consider the end point of slavery. When we talk about 1865, you know, we in 2023 enjoy a very different life. However, we all know that there are still places in the United States that you may have some difficulty traveling. There are still places in the United States where you might want to be mindful to find out some information before you travel there. There are still places in the United States that you might not see a person that look like you at all, anywhere. So I think we have lots to do in this realm. We have lots to consider in this realm. And I think acknowledging Juneteenth for what it is and recognizing it at the level that we are finally is a good sign of acknowledgement. But now the question is, well, what is the work that goes behind that? Because if you're acknowledging it, then now it's a question of, well, how do we enforce the ideals behind that freedom that we talk about? Let me shout out to Miss Joy Crawford. She said, it's what my grandkids call me on Facebook and Instagram.
Absolutely.
And shout out to L.A. Holloway. She said, together we stand by our reflections. And, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, right? Together we stand by our reflections. Now, the historical breakdown of our families, the legacy that is left by our families can't be ignored. The lack of foundation also can't be ignored. Many of us struggle with certain issues because of lack of foundation. And
that's true.
It's important for us to recognize, all right, well, what can we do at the stage that we now can identify? Like, I can see these things. It's not like I'm without the ability to see what it is. So why can't we see it and act upon what it is right now?
Right.
That's why I feel like we're stunted.
I think you're right. And individually, I think many of us have been able to prosper and do well. So individually, our individual families and groups, there's been many members in our individual groups and families that have been able to just do well since the end of slavery, especially since we got civil rights in 1964. And don't forget that, people, because that is not that long ago. I was born in the 60s, and I was literally born in this country before we had civil rights. We did not get civil rights until 1964. That's not that long ago. So the 400 years of slavery really comes from 1619 to 1865, which was when Juneteenth was. That was 246 years. And then from 1865 to when we got civil rights officially in this country, 1964, that period of time is 99 years. And together, that's 346 years, or almost 400 years. But yeah, so between Jim Crow and actual enslavement, our people have suffered a lot. No one has taught us our history officially. The government, none of the citizens have ever stepped in officially. I'm talking about the white citizens who benefited again from slavery. Those groups never stepped in to try to help our groups, to try to bring us back into some type of civilized form, if you will, or to give us anything that would connect us back to our culture.
Right.
It's been a struggle, it's been a fight. And it seems like every time our group does something bad, that is always highlighted in the white media, as if to say, see, these people need to be enslaved because they don't know how to act.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me. I call it whitewashing, but it's almost like trying to justify the dirt after the fact rather than really saying I was wrong,
Right.
and really being humble about trying to restore a people who have been robbed of everything.
You are definitely speaking today. So, guys, we are talking today about Juneteenth and trying to solidify what is your legacy. As we consider the announcement that Juneteenth is being observed now continuously, right? Where do we go from here? What do we leave as a legacy for our children and their children? And how do we contribute in these conversations about what it means to celebrate Juneteenth? One of the things that I recognize is, there's so many things that we don't know, right? So let's talk a little bit more about what we don't know, right? We have this Juneteenth flag, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been playing around with too many different colors because I've seen a variety of colors to reflect the Juneteenth flag, and I'm just like, okay, well, which color is the flag? I've seen a lot of different things, and ultimately, this is supposed to be the color of the Juneteenth flag, even though I'm seeing some Pan-African colors and other kind of colors, but as I started really doing some digging, this is what it's supposed to look like. It says the Juneteenth flag, which commemorates the day that slavery ended in the U.S. And we say free-ish because we ain't talking about a complete ending here. But it says it's full of symbols, and here's what they mean. So one of the things is whenever you see any of this Juneteenth flag symbolism, many times you're going to see a variety of different colors. And the interesting part is because I think that there are different facets of this conversation. There are people that have an imagery of Juneteenth that may be slightly different from others. And I keep trying to figure out, well, what is the imagery that we're supposed to be looking to when we're thinking about Juneteenth? Here it says in this article, the flag is the brainchild of activist Ben Haith. He's the founder of the National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation, and it was created in 97 with the help of collaborators. Now, I remember, Lisa, you were talking about some different coloring that was used at the time that was a little bit different.
Well, I'm just saying, we're a part of America. We've always been a part of America. And if America's colors are red, white, and blue, then so are we, right? However,
But we got to have our own colors, don't we?
However, within America, we've had our own. It's kind of like the struggle within the struggle within the country. We have
Gotcha.
had our own set of struggles. Like we officially struggled with America during wars, and we stood right beside America, and whatever America needed to be and represented, Black Americans were always there. But then that other struggle is when you come home and they say you're not welcome here, and no, you can't use our toilet, and no, we won't sell you hamburgers, not to you kind of
Stop
people.
it.
Okay, so because of things like that, I've seen colors like red, black, and green. Okay,
Aha. Well,
and those those colors represent struggles, the struggles of the people within the American society. That's my understanding.
well, pause the green right there because my Haitian brother said l'argent. That means money,
Money.
which is green. so
L'argent.
we can surely count on the fact that part of these debates over what colors should and should not be and what's being sold and marketed is potentially money, right? Because now it's a holiday, which means holiday comes with celebration, which means celebration comes with purchases, and with purchases comes spending money, and somebody else is making money.
No, Sandy, can you see it now? Hey, come on out this Saturday for the big Juneteenth sale. We're going to have sheets and bedspreads and clothing and vacuum cleaners over Juneteenth. Come on out.
So my Haitian brother says Juneteenth has been trademarked by whom? He said red, black, and green is what it's supposed to be. He said holiday pay also comes. Holiday pay also comes in. So you know what? Maybe we'll engage in the debate over what it should be, shouldn't be, couldn't be. I'm just gonna tell you what some of these peoples are saying it is supposed to be. Allegedly, it's talking about the white star in the center, and it's saying that it represents the Lone Star State, which is kind of interesting because I guess that's where the final branch of this slavery conversation happened. There's a burst around the star inspired by a nova, which is a term that astronomers use to mean a new star. I don't know if we would have been talking about no astronomers and new stars. So maybe that's a question mark there. This arc, it's the curve that extends around the width of the flag, represents a new horizon, opportunities and promise that lay ahead for Black Americans. So these are the colors that they got going on here.
I want to know, when was somebody going to tell us about this? This is like another Juneteenth situation. Someone creates a flag, gives us colors, gives us a starburst, but they don't tell us about it. Come on now. Shoot. And I don't find out till what? June 19th.
This is going to be
June 19th,
oh, that was 1997.
But I didn't find out till June 19th, 2023. What's up with that?
Well, my brother's saying, what's up later? With what about the kente cloth documents? And why are we dealing with the Lone Star in Texas? And he said, we remain in the dark. Spot on. Absolutely. So, these are the things that we always have to talk about because remember, what media outlet is putting this information out? Now, what media outlet is putting out these other colors of the flag? Again, this is where we have trouble and difficulty, right? Because it's about impressions and information that is put out there. Is it information being put out by our community? Is it information historically that was put out by the community that was actually enslaved and then allegedly freed? So,
But I'm upset about that. I didn't know anything about the starburst, the star. It's been 26 years and they're going to come up with red, white, and blue for the end of slavery. I'm cool with that because we're Americans. But anyway, Sandy, you know what I think the real legacy is? One of the things that we could not do as slaves or enslaved people, we could not do any type of planning for our children. We couldn't leave them land. We couldn't leave them houses or horses or buggies, nothing, right? Because we own nothing. So the entire time, that whole almost 250 years of being enslaved, we were not able to pass along any type of legacy. In the meantime, white Americans, they had estate planning going on. They still had will type documents, documents leaving their land to their next of kin. None of that was happening for us. So I think that's a reason why Black people and Black and brown people are so far behind in their estate planning and don't
Yeah.
give it the value that they should, because for so long we weren't even allowed to think about that.
40 acres and a mule is what I'm told.
And
So
hey, did that ever come along?
I haven't heard it yet, so I'll let you know once I get that call. So let's look at according to the National African American Museum, they had this little Juneteenth thing on their site, and it says there are two flags that have special meaning for Juneteenth. It's interesting that it says two flags. So I'm trying to figure out why there would be two flags for one particular event. But so it has the Juneteenth flag, which is basically observed by the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. It's very interesting to me. I would love to dig into this foundation and find out more details. And then it says the African Liberation Flag, created in 1920. The people designed this flag to tell the story of the unity among people from Africa. So the red stands for the struggle and sacrifice, the black stands for the Black people, and green stands for the natural wealth of the land of Africa.
L'argent, baby.
L'argent. We got the money. We got the money. So, it's always interesting to really just begin to do some digging. And I find that as I think about it today on Juneteenth, this is the time that I would be doing that digging, right? The day of the holiday, the observance, the day that I take off, there is no work today. Today is reflect, think, celebrate, spend time with family. Everything else is shut off. Anything else that needs to be addressed will be addressed tomorrow because today is a holiday, right? But I think that what I appreciate about this is it gives me a day that I can reflect on this and ask these questions and talk to folks like yourself and Mr. Laja in the chat. So guys, don't hesitate to drop your comments in the chat. Please share with us your thoughts, your ideas, because we definitely want to engage with you guys today on this special day of Juneteenth. And you can't have Juneteenth without celebration, right?
Well, that's right. And I got one more thing, Sandy.
All right, get that one.
And that one more thing is, what would you say to our ancestors if you had a chance to say something to them on that day, June 19th, 1865? What would you say to them at that point in time? What would you have said?
There's so much that could be said.
Yes.
There's so much that could be said. I don't know.
I would just say thank you. I guess if I'm putting myself where I'm at, like now in my mind and space and looking back to them, I'm saying to them, thank you, obviously, for everything that you've done to maintain just and all the abuse that you've taken as a people, just so the generations of us could be here today in this space, sitting back in air conditioning with running water, hot water, cold water, the ability to go get medical care, to run to the store, not to have to pick cotton, but still can have cotton Prima sheets and clothing and go and order these things online now. Yeah. Thank you for all of your hard work, to my ancestors, to our ancestors, for everything you've done for not free-ish, but for fucking free. Okay?
Dang. Do I gotta bleep that out?
I don't know. But I'm just thanking my ancestors because the folks that should be thanking you, they haven't done jack. But I'm done.
All right. Well, I didn't know the soapbox was gonna go. You got the power. I got to put the fist up or something like.
But Sandy, that was emotional. So the thing that I want to say that's not emotional is what's important is that we create another type of legacy starting right now, right here today. And that legacy is that we're going to empower our ancestors and the ones who are coming after us to do greater, be intentional about planning, about leaving a legacy based on hard work, and each generation will benefit and make it better for the next generation. That's what my hope is. So get your wills, get your powers of attorneys, get your ladybird deeds, get your trust done, be intentional about your legacy, because now you can be intentional, whereas before we didn't have the freedom to do it.
And I do appreciate everything you just said, Lisa, because what's important about what you just said is that the planning piece has to be a part of our conversation. You know, when you asked me earlier, where do we go from here when we think about Juneteenth and moving forward, right? We're just started acknowledging Juneteenth, but where do we go from that acknowledgement? And I'm thinking to myself, it's the planning piece. You know, when you talk about getting these documents in order, it's intentional because you have a plan. When you think about the economic condition that we're in, what is our plan? I was watching a video the other day. We don't budget, we don't save, and we don't talk about budgeting and saving. We talk about spending, trips, cars, clothing, you know, office, you know, this, that. We talk about spending, but we never really have conversations about how we're saving, how we're investing, how we're leaving something as a legacy for tomorrow, whether you have children or no children, whether you have a family or no family, whether you have a company or you work for somebody. Either way, there has to be some kind of plan in place for what you are establishing, what roots you are putting together, because the plan that Lisa's talking about in organizing your important documents comes from your intentions. It's your legacy. So therefore, you have to decide on what that plan looks like, and you have to be intentional about establishing that plan for much more than just yourself.
That's it.
That's the most that I can say.
That's beautiful. Now can we hit it?
Oh Lord, Lisa, now you want to listen to the music? Like, I'm trying to think. Do we want to cover anything else? Are we done? Lisa just happy dancing, y'all. She's just happy.
So happy Juneteenth, and let's keep on rocking and rolling, and let's get even tighter, come into more unity, come into more commonality, and keep marching forward.
Absolutely. So today we were talking about, you know, Juneteenth. What is your legacy? Drop your comments in the chat and let us know what you have established as your legacy. And please don't forget, it's your legacy. So you have to establish what the plan is. That's all we got, Lisa.
That's it.
Have a good one, guys.